All right, we are live, and the New York Mets are still alive in the playoffs. I told you motherfuckers last week. It was me, Kyle, KFC, and I said, hey, win 3 of 4 against the Nats, have a series against the Royals, and you know what? Maybe this team's going to make a move, be buyers instead of sellers, or at least stand pat. And I admittedly haven't followed much outside of just the games, but it looks like the Mets are making a push here. How we feeling, boys? Oh, wait. Let me do a quick look at BarstoolSports.com. Clem blog, the Mets should tear it down and trade every player they can. Oh, and we traded Max Scherzer and David Robertson since the last episode. Egg on my face. We got Kyle, we got my boy Clemmer, and we are talking trade deadline 2023, which admittedly is a little different than Clemmer's debut last year, trade deadline 2022, when we were looking to buy. Billy Epler went to the fucking bargain bin at the front of the grocery store where you get like the $5 DVDs, and then Clemmer reviews them on the Recrotchables. And here we are right now. So welcome to the show, Clemmer. How are we feeling this year as opposed to last year?
Oh, this is horrible. I mean, this is, I went into the season expecting 97 wins. I'm sure everyone listening to this show did. But we're not there. And I actually applaud the Mets for looking at this realistically. Like, I don't know if it's Cohen or Epler. I don't like giving him much credit at all for anything, but whoever it is, whoever's kind of in charge, is doing the right things. You know, if you just look at the 3 deals, the Eduardo Escobar deal, I know it was a month ago, the Robertson deal, and then the Scherzer deal, we got 5 prospects in those deals. And that, if you look at our top 30 prospects, top 21, 5 of them are from those deals. So we had a pretty weak farm system, especially with Beatty and Alvarez, graduating. And to be able to replenish that is huge. Now we just need to make more moves. This team obviously is not going to win this year. They're not built to win next year with the current roster. But if we can move enough guys and maybe fill in some gaps in the offseason, maybe we have something on the table. They have to move guys. They have to move Canna. They have to move Verlander. They have to move Brooks Raley. They have to move everybody they can.
Okay, so and then I have to ask you, and then I'm going to ask Kyle, because this was kind of a big debate KFC had with me. We had the we did an emergency pod before the Scherzer deal was finalized. Kevin likes to just do things. He only likes to do things on deals that are about to hit a snag. He wants to go live. And during the podcast, the deal died and came back to life 7 different times during it. That was a lot of fun to react to live, which is just basically our life as Mets fans in the Cohen era. The Scherzer, when they signed him, it wasn't smooth. We know all the Correa shit. Uncle Stevie getting the team was a fucking cock tease for 2 years. What do you think? Because the big name is Verlander. Are you moving Verlander or are you not moving Verlander if you had the choice, Clemmer? And obviously it depends on the package, yada, yada, yada. But say you get what you would want from him. Would you move Verlander knowing that you can, make a run next year with him as he has I think he's down to 1.41 or whatever his last 6 starts? ERA?
He's looked great. You have to move him. So, he signed not only remember next year, but he's most likely he signed for 2 more years. So the Mets owe him $90 million. So the question isn't so much if you should move him. That answer is clear. You need to. The question now becomes who could take that, that contract. With $90 million, the Rays and Orioles, that probably puts them out of the market. Unless Uncle Stevie's going to eat, he's probably going to have to eat 50% of it no matter what. If he's willing to eat 75% of it, does that bring the Rays and Orioles to the table? 75% of $90 million, that's a lot of money for anybody, even Cohen. So I think he must have to look at that. Now, if you're willing to eat 50% of it, and I see this team, I've heard rumors already this morning, the Dodgers. Does that put the Dodgers in play then? And that might be the most likely move. Stevie eats 50%. We trade Verlander to the Dodgers, and we get 2 decent prospects back. That's my guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair. Kyle, what are your thoughts on Verlander? I mean, I imagine I think we've been saying for a while. At this point, you trade I tweeted last night, the Mets are getting hot. All we need is a closer and maybe a veteran arm to slide into the 3 spot. And yeah, those are exactly what we just moved. Canna, fam, it feels like, we all do this even in our fucking MLB The Show. It's well, this guy's a free agent. We're dead. Let's just move him and get some sort of pieces. Are you cool just basically gutting it with those 1-year guys, the Canna, the fam, the Raley's, and then kind of the Verlander is, I think, the big question.
That's where it's you're not really sure, where all these players are saying, we don't know what direction this team is going in, and that's why we need to have a conversation. First of all, they need to shut this open door policy if all these people think that they can just walk in and be like, what are we doing here? Like, I want to get out. Like, it's not your decision. It's the team's decision on what they're trying to do. They have a bigger picture, you would hope. But Cohen's a numbers guy. I said that from the beginning. The second you saw the writing on the wall, he's looking at the averages. He's looking at the probabilities. He's saying, we're not making the postseason. If we do, we're not going deep into it. What's the point of all this? I'm spending all this money. Let's cut our losses. I'm going to have to pay them anyway, which is also you want to hear from the most wealthy owner in baseball is that I have to pay this anyway. If I can get a little bit back and we can get some players, great. No other team really has that, is afforded that opportunity that we have to do it.
Yep.
But for Verlander, it's sticky situation because if you do trade him, it is signaling that like next year probably isn't going to be so great either. And he gave us that 3 to 5 year window. So it's like, where does the ego and the reality of things come to pass? If he's going to tear it down, completely tear it down. I'm on board for it. I'm going to have to suck wind trying to like figure out to have any sort of excitement for next year. But if they could get a return for it, I also heard that the Astros were poking around, and obviously he's familiar with that team. He's friends with the owner. If they can bring him back, like, why not in that case? And these are all teams that have a good farm system and a good reputation of churning out talent. If they can get what they need for it, then you have to be for it because there's no other option at this point.
Yeah, no, I'm with you guys. There is part of me that's like, I feel like they'll at least try to split the. I don't think Cohen's looking to bottom out by any means. I don't think you really can bottom out. Your team, we're not just garbage in all the other spots. We still have a lineup that, let's be honest, has underperformed their asses off this year, but they'll bounce back. You have Senga still there, or All-Star Kodai Senga. And you still have Stevie's wallets trying to make some moves. But if you can get what you want for Verlander, and again, it's kind of like with Max. It's not as much this year or the second year of the deal. It's the third year that just hangs over your head. And I don't know what the fuck Verlander is going to look like in 2 years after just seeing Max. Speaking of Max, I think we were all on the same page. So, Clem, I don't know how much you were following all this, but like we're getting like going from last year, all right, are we going to get Soto? Can we trade for Ohtani? To getting updates on which players in the Rangers farm system are getting scratched, and if it's for trade reasons or disciplinary reasons. That was a life comes quick at you moment for all of us, right? So I didn't think Max was the guy. When you're hearing all these names, you're hearing Acuna, I'm like, that has to be Verlander. I was shocked we got anything for Max close to this. And I know there's probably advanced numbers that say Max isn't as bad as he's been. The guy was just he was a better home run pitcher than Pete had in the Derby. And every time he got a lead, he gave it right back, and it just drove us all crazy. So I imagine you're kind of like with us. Acuna, even if that was the deal, we're forking over a ton of money. That's a fucking win in the books. Yeah,
Acuna is definitely a win. So I think it's important as Mets fans, we kind of take a little larger look at things. So I know sometimes we get caught in the moment. I do too with some of these things. But remember, Max Scherzer with the Mets was 20-9 with I'm looking it up right now, a 3.02 ERA. So, like, if you're looking at it from the big picture, like, this guy hasn't been that bad with the Mets. I know this year he's definitely taken a step back. But I think Scherzer's an easier trade to make because he's only signed for one more year after this. You know, the option, and he obviously exercised it. Verlander's a tougher deal to make. Remember, too, Scherzer's younger than Verlander. So I think that's a little easier deal to make. I also don't believe we're necessarily cooked for next year after making these moves. If you look at the free agents coming up in the next offseason, there's a ton of starting pitchers. Obviously, you have Ohtani. You have Julio Urias, Jordan Montgomery. I know these guys, like Jack Flaherty's not a big name, but if he's your fourth or fifth starter, you're rocking and rolling. So there are guys that are going to be available in the free agent market, especially in the starting pitching aspect, that we could just basically, if Steve wants to spend the money, we could retool and bring in some guys that also aren't 40 fucking years old. We can go and get some guys that are like a normal age and build around Senga. And I know this is maybe just me being a Mets fan, glutton for punishment. I have to believe, too, another reason you're making these moves is to clear off some payroll so you can make a move maybe for a guy like Ohtani. If you put Ohtani, and I know this is wishful thinking, Ohtani, Senga, and then you fill it in with guys like Montgomery, Flaherty, maybe Eduardo Rodriguez might be a free agent. That's a decent staff. You can put it together on the fly pretty easily if you're willing to spend the money.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, and I hadn't realized this until I was texting with my buddy about just the free agent class. So you mentioned Urias, you mentioned Montgomery. I think Nola was out there, Aaron Nola. And I didn't realize that. And
Blake
then
Snell.
Blake Snell, yep.
Yoshi Yamamoto. We were talking about him. I'm falling in love. It's easy I never really fall in love with Japanese pitchers. Senga has been good enough though, and I mean, hey. 3 of the older guys on the podcast here, Yoshi, Senga. We had the console wars of our youth. The fucking t-shirts sell themselves at that point. And like, it is like kind of a weird thing where you're like, oh, if you sign 2 Japanese pitchers, Ohtani would love to play there. But I do think it probably brings a little bit of comfort. And I think trying to like take over that Japan market, it's like that's going to print money in itself because people actually believe Phil's fake tweet about 90%, 95% of the millions of people in Japan watching WBC because they love it that much. They love baseball that much. So like, sign me the fuck. Like I'm looking at highlights for him already. This is where I am on July 31st. It's a big downgrade from last year where we're trying to figure out our rotation for the playoffs at this point. But you're right. Now, this is the thing though. If we like these guys, they're younger. You have to give them probably definitely going to have to give them a longer contract, not kind of a 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And you're going to, what is it? You lose your pick gets bumped down. It's the compensation kind of stuff for a signing. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're just keep loading up on prospects, thanks to Stevie's money, as well as these guys were shipping out, I think like the machine is starting to roll and you can compete and still build the system when it's all said. Kyle, you kind of on the same page with all that?
They got to build a system with some pitchers at some point, though.
Yes.
I don't know what the fuck they're doing with that. Like, if the 2 guys that just got in rookie ball, infielder, catcher. Okay, fine. Infielder, you could put literally anywhere. We have like 4 or 5 catchers deep at this point between who's up already and who's down in the minors. So, like, immediately you're just thinking to yourself, well, that's a trade piece. That's got to be something that we have to move. Like, I'm all about building the equity around what we're going to be able to do in the future, but you just don't have a sense of that picture knowing like Billy Epler's not going to be the guy in 2 years when that comes to fruition. So unless they're moving it right now, it just seems like a random pickup. If Stearns is coming in and he's going to be the guy, and the way that baseball is working now is like the manager used to have all the power. Now the GM has all the power. Now the president of baseball operations has all the power. They're just insulating themselves with scapegoats to get rid of other people to bring in new people. And it's like, we don't know the direction of the team because we don't know who's going to be running, who's going to be steering the ship. So that's where, like, yes, get all the prospects. Yes, get everything you can for these older guys and rentals and, you know, everyone that we have on the roster right now. But who's to say that this comes to fruition in 2 years? I'm a Mets fan who's waited my whole life to see a World Series win. I don't want to wait anymore. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, every single season I'm expecting to be competitive. I think we could be. But I think that they also look at the rest of the division and they go, well, we're not going to be better than the Braves. So if we have to suck for a year and then turn it around in 2025, that might just be what we have to do, which sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. Maybe they're thinking outside the box. This is a very niche reference, but anyone that watched Secret Invasion, they got an Acuna. They're trying to make a harvest of their own. Get DNA of every single player that is fucking awesome. Get their brother in here. And like I said, I take any sperm that ever came out of Ronald Acuna Sr.'s dick because that guy fucking apparently makes studs. So, 2024 is going to become like the most talked about thing, I feel, over the next 2 months for us Mets fans. And I guess the next, 6 o'clock deadline, by the way, is very weird. It's a very weird thing. I kind of like that it'll be right in the news cycle. We'll get it cranking out. If SportsCenter was still a big thing, you'd be going on SportsCenter and all the deals that are coming in at 6:05 and stuff like that. But at this point, it's sell, sell, sell. And Clemmer, you said it best. I completely forgot about the Escobar trade, and the Robertson trade is still kind of settling in. We're going to have Joe DeMayo come on. I just talked to him. Hopefully have him on like at the end of the week and just tell us like, who the fuck are all these new guys that just came in? Clemmer, have you learned anything about at least the Marlins guys? Because I think we all know Acuna. We've all seen the same fucking hit of him into that bomb off. That was the only fucking highlight people were using for him for some reason. But I don't know anything else about any of these other guys. Is there anyone else I should be especially excited about? Because everyone was just poo-pooing everything as soon as the trade went down. But it's like Marlins fans seem kind of bummed that they were trading these guys for Robertson, right?
Yeah, they seem higher, obviously, on Vargas than they are on Hernandez. I don't know a ton about these guys. I'm not going to pretend to. One thing that Kyle made a reference to that makes a lot of sense is, look, every Mets fan knows we are, stacked deep with hitting prospects. We don't have much pitching prospects at all. It's funny, the Angels, you see them, they made another trade last night where they have their farm system is, by the way, just nothing. There's nothing left. And they somehow drug up 2 pitchers, the 2 last pitchers they have, and they traded those guys for the CJ Cron and Randall Grichuk last night. So there's just not, I feel like there's just not a lot of pitching prospects. There's way more hitting prospects right now in the major leagues and minor leagues than there are pitching prospects. At least that's what it feels with teams we're talking to and things like that. So I think maybe the Dodgers, I feel like the Dodgers might have some pitching prospects that might be able to help us in a Verlander deal. I hope that's what they're going to target. Like, I hope when we're moving Verlander and even moving a guy like Mark Hanna or Tommy Pham, I hope they are asking for, obviously you're not going to get a major prospect, but whoever they get, I hope we can get some pitching guys in there because our farm system desperately needs it.
And I'm looking at, I read a thing online, and we drafted a lot of pitching this year. So I feel like maybe the draft is part of it. I don't know if maybe they want to have more veteran-y staffs, moving forward, or at least have stuff that's more developed in terms of pitching. I do think you need to get like 1 or 2 guys, which Verlander, you're going to hope is going to net you a big fish if you end up trading him. I'm not expecting any, legit major league arms for Pham or Canna, unfortunately. Is there anyone else that you think could be like a surprise? Like, again, just going, we are at a very weird point where it's like guys who are probably here for the long term. Your Nimmos, your Lindors, probably even Pete, even though he hasn't signed. You're not trading McNeil at his absolute lowest value. And then like the babies, Beatty and Vientos, you're not trading them after what they've done. And Alvarez is a guy you build around, it seems. So I think it's kind of just eyes on Pham, Canna, Verlander, Rayleigh, and I mean, if there's any, I don't think even Ottavino has any kind of interest.
I think the longer we play Vientos, the quicker everyone realizes he's positionless. And I'm like, maybe there was a reason they kept sending him up and down. I don't think they're going to move him, but I wouldn't be upset if they packaged him with one of these other guys and we got like a bigger haul out of it, because it seems to be that he's not going to be the guy that they're trying to build around out of all the 3 of them.
But I go the other way. I would DFA Vogelback yesterday. Get rid of him. He's useless. He doesn't help at all. And just play Vientos every day for the next 60 days and just see what we have. Yeah. I don't think there's any harm in that.
No, I'm with you on that.
At this point, they shouldn't be playing anybody who's on any type of contract that isn't over a year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on the Vogelback thing. I feel like after the deadline, it's almost like 601. You're going to just see it come across a transaction. Mets have designated.
Bring up Ronnie, like the whole thing.
And that's
why not? I mean, there's no reason not to. And, Carrasco is another guy. You talk about, like, I was looking desperately last night, like, all right, who can we move? I think Carrasco just with that last start, just sunk his trade. Now his ERA is 6.40. I think you just got to DFA him, too. I mean, he's terrible. And what's the point? I'd rather just see Jose Butto come up and let him just pitch the next 2 months. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I hate a player more than Cookie Carrasco. I mean, the guy, he just does nothing. He had that, what was it, the Arizona game I talked about, which fooled like everyone into thinking maybe there's something there. When he was thrown in the Lindor trade, it was like the one thing that's like, all right, well, and we got Cookie, like it just gave me like such hope and everything. And I was always a guy I kind of liked, but hadn't really watched a ton. And all the Indians fans, like or Guardians fans, like, you're going to love him, Cookie this, Cookie that. And outside of a few starts, he has been the worst motherfucking pitcher. And I can't understand why you're just ruling him out anymore. And that's the one game you lose over the weekend where you could have actually, if you had someone who with a fucking pulse, would he go 2 1/3, 8 runs? I mean, what are we doing at this point? What are we fucking doing? Cookie needs to retire. And speaking of retirement, you know what Cookie needs to do? He needs to get himself a Coors Light. Get your Coors Light, get your Blue Mountains, start drinking, and just sit back and enjoy retirement. We all think about the day we'll eventually get to retire and enjoy all the freedom that comes with it. And Cookie, you could do it tonight. You could do it right now, 11:21 a.m. on July 31st. File your paperwork, sign it at the bottom, probably giving up a whole lot of money to Uncle Stevie, but just sit back, relax, and enjoy. I've been dreaming of retirement since I was born, basically, and I'm nowhere closer to it now than I am then, it feels like. It feels like I'm just a hamster on a wheel. Who says we have to wait decades before we kick back and chill out? Dave Portnoy. Unless Dave Portnoy wants to give me a lot of money, that's one way I could get to retire, or I can open up a nice, fresh Coors Light. It's the beer that's made to chill, pairs well with a retired state of mind. The mountains on the bottles and cans even turn blue when your beer is cold, so you know it's time when it's time to grab another. It's perfect for all your summer plans or lack thereof. No judgment here. My summer plans before the summer was like, watch the Mets have a playoff race, and we'll see what happens in October. Now it's watch the Mets, see the young kids rake, and hopefully everything comes together. So this summer, chill like you're retired with Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Drizzly or Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/believe. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Cookie making a seamless transition for that ad read is honestly the best thing I've seen him do since he came to the Mets. It's unbelievable.
He had his moments last season. That was the thing. It was just all the pieces fit together perfectly at the right time, and that's how you end up with a 101-win team. And Starling Marte, there's so many players that we can't even move.
Yeah,
it's a byproduct of the fact of why we are sellers in the first place. You're telling me that we can't move Marte, and it's like that's why the team's been so fucking bad.
Hand up. Cookie had a 3.53 ERA last year. I do not remember that at all. I'm looking at the numbers here. He had a 3.53 ERA. He had 5.22 in 2021, so some of that Cookie's in my brain. And then in 29 starts, it's not even like he was out for a ton and had no sample size. 3.53, and then like you said, 6 this year. Hand up on me, Cookie. You were better than I remember. Last year was fucking magical. And that
you get through that first inning, that 3-5 is all first inning runs. I would have.
Yeah, you're 100% right. First inning Cookie is the weirdest thing. The yes run first inning guy. He's the BEC killer, as we know him around the Barstool Sportsbook.
One thing I wanted to say real quick. So we talked about I heard I don't know what we get for Canna or for Pham. Well, the nice thing with Uncle Steve is we saw this with the Escobar deal is that if he eats the entire contract, it opens up some things because you have some small market teams right now that are competing. Think of the Reds, the Orioles, the Rays. These are teams that try to stretch every penny as best they can. If Uncle Steve is like, hey, look, I'll give you Pham. I'll pay. I think we owe him $3 million. I think he was $6.5 million deal. I think we owe him $3 million. I'll pay the $3 million. I'll pay all of it. But you give me that AA arm. You give me that single A arm. Teams are willing to do that, especially the small market teams. You can get something, especially if you package Pham, maybe and Rayleigh, and you eat all of it. There will be people that will give up some not huge prospects, some prospects.
Right now, we're paying James McCann, Eduardo Escobar, Robinson Cano, and Max Scherzer, and we're paying them substantial amounts of money. And it's not he's going to make $1 billion next year anyway. That's the insane part. He just rolls through to the new tax season, and he's just like, all right, I've got another plus billion on the books. None of this matters. This is all pocket change. It's
incredible, and that's at the end of the day, when people are like, well, it's like the Wilpons still. It's like no. It is. We would be stuck. And we would have never even signed Scherzer or any of the others. Cano would still be playing every single day.
Yeah,
if the Wilpons
were here. That's just $20.5 million from us.
Does he make it?
$19 million.
Oh my God!
Max Scherzer this year and next year combined, $35 million. And he's not even blinking. It's not losing an ounce of sleep over any of this. And that's the crazy part. That's always what the Yankees were, right? Jacoby Ellsbury, that sucked. So they just shipped him to the end of the bench. And they just paid it off, and they got some other guy to fill in for him. This is like that on steroids because now we're just paying him to go play against us. We're paying you to try to beat the Mets, and we're going to pay you $19 million.
So I'm looking up for next year. McCann is still on the books, which is fucking bananas that he's still on the books next year. And that Orioles team is nasty from top to bottom, and he still stinks. I don't want to hear about James McCann. And I know he's going to hit I was going to say he's going to hit a big home run. He might hit he might make a nice saves a wild pitch or something. He's not going to hit a big home run in a big spot. But he's there on the books for $8 million next year. And I was wondering what Max's exact salary settled in at next year, and it says 20.8, which is much less than 43. So, and again, I don't know if I imagine, like you said, Kyle, they're like, Steve, can we trade Max and you eat, $20-some million? And he probably doesn't even have a meeting or even look like he probably just sends it from his iPhone. It's like, yep, no problem. And just sends it off. It's crazy. So if he's going to play a bully with the wallet, let him do it that way as well. And Clemmer, this is why I love having you on the pod, man. I don't even think of those small market teams. This is something that's legitimately attractive to them. And the Mets should be fucking good. That's the one thing we should take out of all this. The 2023 Mets on paper were good. The fucking WBC fucked us. Did you see that Buck quote, by the way?
Yeah,
That was incredible when he said, hey, everything's kind of with the shit, but at least everyone had enjoyed a good World Baseball Classic. It's about time. I want Buck to get a little sassy over the next 2 months as we fade to oblivion.
Are we going to see Buck next year that I got? Should we see him in the dugout?
I think he gets the Willie Randolph treatment. I think he basically gets like half a season. If they go to California at some point and they lose in the middle of the night, he gets axed. No, I don't think that'll happen. But no, I think he gets a season. What about you, Kyle? What do you think?
I think he deserves this. He was,
manager of the year
last year. Like, you want to say that's a fake title or whatever, because I'm sure Boone won it at some point, and we all know that guy's not an actual manager. So it's more so people are pissed off that he's not fiery, and he's being the shield for the players in the clubhouse by saying stupid shit. But I do think he does it on purpose. Like that's part of his job. That's part of his like shtick, is like, let me say something that you can like take the headlines from, and don't worry about Lindor saying like, oh, I'm proud to be a Met and like we're trying really hard and all this stuff. Like he's protecting the guys more so than anything else. And I don't think he's lost the respect in the clubhouse. And once you lose the respect in the clubhouse, then you got to get rid of them. And as long as the players are still like happy and with like the situation, I think he gets another year.
All right, Clemmer, what do you think? Because I can feel there's a little bit of salt in you right now, a little bit of fire in you.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really curious. So David Stearns is obviously going to take over. It's an open secret. We all know that.
And it's his decision, right?
Was that?
It's going to be his decision if he wants.
Right. So I wonder if they will keep him to start the year at least, and then kind of see where things go, and then maybe at the end of next year, Stearns brings in his own guy. I wouldn't be shocked if something like that happens. But yeah, I think we're all on the same page. I'm sure Buck will be in the dugout and start the season next year.
He does have a 3-year contract, so it'll be over next year anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
yeah,
we're gonna have all the
lame works.
Talk. Oh God, the media is gonna jump all over that, right? Like, why haven't you given Buck an extension yet? And it's like, well, did you guys watch last season?
Right.
So that's a good question, Clemmer. I do feel like, and this is just because he had the manager in Milwaukee now. I feel like we're gonna be the next team to hire the ex-player to come in. That actually might be perfect, where Stearns wants the next player like a council. And I think Uncle Stevie always wanted Beltran here. I know for a fact he wasn't happy when they fired him the way they did as manager, which, I mean, this team can give me how I don't have a giant tumor in my head from this team, just like thinking about all this shit that happens nonstop. I think we were paying like 4 managers at one point during that fucking colossal fuck up. I think Buck at least gets half a season, if not the whole year. But like you said, Stearns is probably just going to take care of shit and just bring in the guys he wants. Do you think Epler stays around? Because that's his buddy. It sounds like they are buddies. And what the GM role means with a Bobo is not what it used to mean, we were growing up, or at least what we thought it meant. Do you think Epler sticks around, Clemmer?
Yeah, Epler will be around. He just won't have any real power. He's going to be kicked downstairs. Like he'll be the GM. Yeah. But David Stearns is going to make all the calls. Epler will 100% be, part of the front office next year. I think it'll be in a very different capacity.
I think there should be no world in which Buck gets let go before Epler in terms of like what's gone on with this team. I think you could firmly say that it's more Epler than Buck, but the manager's always the first to go. Cause again, that's the same thing. You're insulating yourself with the guy who's like, well, that guy gets fired. Now I know I'm on the clock to turn my job around, but Buck will be the first one.
Yeah.
Or Hefner, let's be honest, like the pitching coach probably.
Yeah, I think Hefner might be taking a long walk off a short plank at the end of the year. Am I naive? I think the Mets are going to be competitive next year. Is that me being stupid, or is that like I think we're going to just re-up with free agent arms next year? Like I think Verlander is going to be gone by Tuesday at 6:01. I think he's gone. Tomorrow at 6:01, he's gone. You heard his post-game comp. He'll approve any trade. He wants out. His bags are packed. He's like, get me the fuck out of here. So I think Verlander will be gone, but I think we have the ability to reload. Am I just being a idiotic Mets fan here, or am I my feet in reality?
The idiotic Mets fan. I'll tell you what the idiotic Mets fan. It's people like us that didn't see this season coming, and we all said like, there's a chance that Max and Verlander take a step back. And let's be honest, like. Verlander has been fucking good. He had a couple bumps like every pitcher does, not just 40-year-old pitchers. And Max is what he is. It ended with a 4 ERA, which isn't cookie style. But that's my biggest thing. Even without Verlander, I think next year you can definitely get a couple arms, whether it's Yamamoto, whether it's any of the guys, Nola, any of the other guys we're talking about, or you have guys to trade now too. That's the beauty of all these prospects coming in. And you have the money of Cohen to kind of like fill in the blanks. So I expect this team to be, what the fuck, what's competitive these days? Like at worst, you're competing for a while. It's so easy to be competitive in baseball. It's almost harder to not be competitive at this point, especially with, having the resources you do. So I definitely expect him to be competitive.
I don't think it's us actively shopping him, though. I think it's an offer we can't refuse. Like, the haul for him back needs to be substantial enough for them to justify it, because it's like, for better or worse, every team needs to have like that ace, that big name, whatever it is, and he's our guy for that. And it's like, you're going to pay him $43 million next year and find one other pitcher, or get rid of him, and then you have to find two pitchers and hope that you hit on both of those guys. They're paying off his contract probably no matter what. So it's like, then it becomes a numbers game also. They need to find, like, if it's a move from one of these teams where the Dodgers are like hitting us over the head with top prospects, then you have to. But if we're not picking up the phone to call anybody else. Like, it's all incoming calls of what can you guys do for me? And I think it's going to go right up to the deadline. And it's fitting that today's the anniversary of Cespedes, because that was like, I remember it was like 10 minutes left on the clock when that went through. And shit like that is what's going to happen with Verlander. Then I think we get a huge haul.
So there's I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Dodgers or their system at all, but they have two guys in the major leagues right now that are kind of, they're not ideal starting pitchers, Gavin Stone and then Emmett Sheehan. Sheehan, his debut pitched 6 no-hit innings. He's come back to earth a bit since then. Stone's had some up and down issues as well. But like, if you gave me those two guys and we ate 50% for Verlander, these are two pitchers that could, AAA major leagues, you could have them start the rest of the year in the rotation. I would do that. I think, these are guys that are major league ready already or close to it, and they could fill in some of those gaps in rotation. I think that's something like that would be a trade I would green light in a heartbeat. I don't know if you guys are looking for more like major league ready or close to it prospects, or you guys are looking for more like lower A guys to kind of fill in the back end of the minor leagues. I don't know what you guys are more interested in.
I'll take anything. People are prospect huggers and they go crazy, or if they're not on a top 100 list, it's like, this guy stinks. And it's like, no, that's not how baseball works. It's like, and I guess you have to kind of just trust the scouts at this point, which I don't know how much everything has changed since Stevie's come in and all the nerds, the analytics guys, but you hope we already got some sort of a haul back from all these other trades that one of these guys is going to blossom into. I'm not saying an all-star, but I'd be happy. I know one of those guys I was looking at in fantasy, and I was like, that first start, I was like, little fool. And I think the blurb was even like, yeah, like, trust me, his stuff wasn't to the point where you're like, this guy's going to be a potential ace right off the bat. So there are things like that with the Dodgers, but I mean, that's the beauty, is like, with these wild cards, so many more teams are in the race, like you said, and being able to maybe eat some of Verlander's money. It kind of like, there was two ways that this, potentially could have ended up decent for us. This whole Verlander Scherzer experiment. It was either one, win the fucking World Series. That's not happening, breaking. And number two, it's like, kind of just ship them off, kind of just, cut your losses. It's not going to be a long-term payoff, and you get back some pretty decent prospects out of it. I mean, feels like an absolute win to me, right?
Somewhere in the Mets front office, there's a whiteboard with Ohtani's name just circled and nobody else on it. And they're like, if we're going all in on him, it doesn't matter who the ace is, because he's going to be the ace. I think you can move Senga up to that 2 spot. I think he's shown enough, and he's going to already have like the growth of that where he could handle a 2 spot. He's been our best pitcher. So for his first season, he's been outstanding. His stuff looks, it's just as good as advertised. They do need an ace. So if it's not going to be Verlander, I don't think Senga is going to make the jump from the 3 to the 1 where we can rely on him to go head to head with someone else's 1 week after week. But like you said, there's a huge number of free agent pitchers that are out there for them to get. So they move him and they go get 2 other guys. I think you could have a competitive season, but at the end of the day, you're still looking at the Braves no matter what. So it's like, we're playing for a wild card.
Speaking of the Braves, did you guys see, I think with John Morosi tweeted that they had called the Mets about Verlander, but they were not actively in conversations. Right. Let me just say, that was the most fucking vicious tweet I've ever read. And if it's true, that phone call, because it's like, I mean, trading in division happens all the time, but like, to look at us and you're like, you guys aren't even our rivals. Like, because you would, like, if it was the other way around, I would never expect the Mets to call the Braves singing, because I'm like, oh, we're rivals with them. It would be like the Yankees and the Red Sox. Like 2003, though, when there really wasn't a rivalry because the Yankees were the hammer and the Red Sox were the nail. That was fucking, that gutted me. That hurt almost worse than anything since last October, basically. Yeah. That was like, we don't really see you guys. Like, you guys are going to be chasing that wild card for a few years if you're lucky. So that one hurt a lot. And you can't trade Verlander to the Braves. You just can't do it.
Where are you guys?
Marlins are playing over their head. Like the Marlins have had a great season, even without Sandy Alcantara having like his Cy Young stuff. So like that one came out of nowhere. The Phillies, I feel like, are always just a toss up. They always seem like they should be better going into the season, and then they kind of like sputter out. But like in the grand scheme of things, it's like the Nationals, us, a lot of room, and then those other three teams right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Clem, what were you saying?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Where were you guys on Jose Quintana? Now, there's some teams were sniffing around on him. He only has one more year after this, obviously. But the thing I'm kind of worried about is for next year, we're trading all these guys great. I don't want to be in the same position as we were this year where we don't have any starting pitching depth. I mean, that's what killed us this year. We're out there starting McGill and Peterson, when they were both just pitching terribly. And we had no other options. Now, I don't mind if those guys come up and pitch the rest of the year this year to kind of see what they are, and we just need to have people start games. But for next year, I want to go in with we have 6 or 7 decent arms. If we trade Jose Quintana, I'm not saying he's a great player, but he's a fine number 5 guy, I guess. So I'd almost rather keep him bizarrely. But don't get me wrong, if the right deal is there, we should do it.
I'm with you on that, Clemmer. I'm kind of sell, but at the same point, you have to play baseball in 2024. And like you said, you need depth. I mean, we said this, people are like, oh, the Mets go like 7, 8 deep back when we thought Peterson and McGill were actually like depth. And it turns out just how quickly that all goes away. I am interested, speaking of Quintana, though, and Verlander and Scherzer, how much this will affect, like, hey, I'm just going to go to the Mets, grab the bag, and, settle in there. I think that we were becoming a spot where people would love to have the last couple of years of their career, make that Stevie money, and go from there. I think it's now to be like, they might trade your ass in a couple months. And I still think people are going to look to get the money, obviously. But I think a little bit of the bloom of the rose has worn off. I don't know the fucking phrase, but you guys know what I'm saying, basically. So I like Quintana. I just also think I haven't seen him enough to really learn to hate him. Like I hate most of this team right now. Kyle, I feel like Quintana's your guy. Like we're talking. That's
why his value's so high. That's why, like they were like everybody was scouting him in his minor league rehab starts for 5 outings, and then he came up and he's looked good. He's looked good so far. So it's like one of those things of how much longer is he gonna look good? Like, is this gonna be a Cookie Carrasco situation where like maybe he just has a couple good starts that he strings together and we can go hoodwink some team into trading for him? I'm not hanging my hopes of 2024 on him either way. So if he's here next year, great. If for some reason some team decides that he's going to be the thing that puts them over the top in the playoffs, I don't know who would think that. Also great. But I think, again, it's more so all incoming calls. I don't think the Mets are like actively shopping anybody that isn't named Tommy Pham or Canna at this point, because some team always wants to just do like some bench lengthening. And both of those guys, I mean, even on the broadcast yesterday or 2 days ago, they were like, Canna's one of those guys where it looks like he's having a down year, and then you just check the stat sheets at the end of the season, you're like, nope, he played up to exactly what you think you'd get out of him. So, I'm sure he's that guy who's going to go to some team and have some historic home run for some sort of game, or he does something that you weren't expecting, and he's that guy that you forget about, but he's a good piece to have.
I mean, you talk about the Mets not making calls on their own. You got to remember, there's twice as many buyers as there are sellers.
Yeah,
there's 20 teams that are looking for players. There's only 10 roughly that are willing to part with them.
And it's just us the Cardinals that have signaled that sellers like heavy yet.
The Cardinals made a bunch of trades yesterday, and they're not done. They traded Flaherty. They traded Montgomery, and they traded Hicks yesterday. Dylan Carlson's going to go. Flaherty's going to go. Goldschmidt might go. There's a lot of guys there that might still go from that Cardinals team. That's the difference. Like the Cardinals and Mets have assets. Think about some of the bad teams, the A's, the Royals. There's not even anyone on those teams you would want. So there's even less sellers than you might think, because a few of the teams just have no one to sell. So the Mets are in a pretty good spot right now with who they have to offer.
I just looked it up too. It's funny you say that, Clemmer. I looked it up. 19 teams are either in the playoffs, like they're division leaders, or they're within 4.5 games of the wild card. If you want to bump up to 5 games, it's 20 teams. So there you go. 20 teams, 2/3 are in the race. We're not one of them, even though we're kind of like sneaking into that, which again does not mean a thing. We have the Royals next, and then after the Royals comes the Orioles, the Cubs, and then the Braves. So I'm not getting too excited about like where we are in the standings.
How bad are we going to be? Like, I mean, so we're 50 and 55 right now. If you put a gun to my head, I say we finish like 76 and 86. I don't think we lose 90 games, but if we trade Verlander, look at that rotation. It gets wild quick.
And let's let the people at home know, Clemmer, what do you have on the line if the Mets lose 90 games this season?
Yeah, they lose 90 games, I'm getting a tattoo. I made a bet with Frank that if they win 90 games, Frank had to get a tattoo. And if they lose 90 games, I have to get a tattoo. I made it and I laughed in his face. I'm like, ha, what a foolish bet, Frank. And now I'm scared. I'm going to end up with the fucking Mr. Mets.
Does he get to pick what it is?
Yeah, it has to be just Mets related, nothing embarrassing, and I can pick.
Frank was right? Are you going to tattoo Frank was right on your leg?
No. I'm just going to have Mr. Met, like the running pose he does.
Oh, nice.
Woo.
That's my favorite one. I like that one.
I'll have that on my leg, which is fine. It is what it is. But I'm hoping they don't lose 90. But like I said, what's the rotation? It's, Senga, Quintana, Butto, Peterson, McGill.
It gets really ugly, really.
It's weird.
What's my boy Joey Cherv doing down in the fucking minors right now? Is he showing
maybe
a pulse?
Gets that call. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, maybe he comes up. I don't know. But that's it. Gets but like I still don't think they're gonna like lose. I still don't think they're gonna lose 90 games. I think that I said that's good enough to go like 75, 76 wins.
72 and 90 is like a especially awful season, especially rotten. And even if you have 3 teams in that are going to make the postseason and the Marlins are looking better than expected, who we play a bunch in September, it would take. And I think Buck has a certain amount of professional pride, as do some of the guys on this team. I'm not going to say everybody.
Offense, they could put out some runs too. So if it just becomes a barn burner every week, it's like, okay, well, we could scratch out a few there. Like Alonso looks to be coming around. He's got 30 home runs. He's back to his power stroke. You got Alvarez. You got the young guys, Vientos. They're hitting home runs. They could score 6-7 runs a game. I don't think they're going to lose 90.
Man, we have gotten fucking dark here. Where are the Mets going? Last year, remember, it was the 96ers.
Yep.
And now it's like, are they going to lose 90 or the? Oh my god,
it's so. I was thinking about it. So I'm 43. It's like, all right, what's the only thing I can compare this to, I guess, is like 91 and like 2002, where you had high expectations. 2002 just got Roberto Alomar. 91 they had been good forever, and it's just a complete disaster. It's just, and they started off 14-7. This sucks.
Yeah, that 14-7 feels like a different season. It feels like that was the beginning of last season, right? It's crazy.
It feels a million miles away.
Gotta believe.
If you say so.